Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here with another weekly edition with my good buddy and MMA legend, John Fitch. There he is, folks. Fitch Smash Everything. If you want to check out everything that John does, you can do that over at johnfitch.net. He has his own daily podcast called John Fitch Knows Nothing. He's got quite the Instagram and Twitter following as well. And John, you just got back from a seminar this weekend?
Yeah, I was down in San Diego at the arena teaching some of my Fitch Smash system. Went really well. It was a good weekend. Took the kids down with me, so we got some beach time, and went to the Safari Park Zoo down there too.
Oh, really? Is this the first time the kids have been to the zoo, or have they been there before?
That one, as big as that, it's a pretty massive. We didn't even get to most of it. We were there for about 4 hours, and we probably did 50%, if that, 40% of the park.
Very cool, very cool. I always love that family time. And guys, if you want to share this after the fact, you want to share the audio version, thegruelingtruth.com is where you can find it in podcast form. Following this live broadcast, we do answer all super chats, and sometimes at the end of the show we also go to you guys and answer your questions as well. We're going to be recapping this week's events, which were Bellator on Friday, UFC in Moscow during the day, and then you had the Logan Paul KSI boxing match. Now, what I liked about that, other than the fight wasn't bad for two amateurs, John, is that they brought in a lot of pro boxers. You know, this wasn't like all celebrity boxing undercard. And there were some good undermatches for people like myself who are casual fans that maybe don't know everybody that holds one of the 612 belts out there in boxing.
That's a misnomer that there are more belts in boxing than in MMA. There are more weight classes, which makes more belts, but there are more weight classes because they have more money to sustain that many independent businesses, so to speak.
Yeah, but aren't there, like, say we
there are every single MMA promotion has a belt. Mm-hmm. There are way more belts in MMA than boxing.
I guess
there are four main ones, but that adds to healthy competition. You need those because you could have a slimy promoter like we have in MMA who won't allow some of the top guys to fight for the belt because they want to have control. So they would have the option, those fighters have the option in boxing to go and fight for one of the other major titles, make themselves more appealing for the title shot for the promoter who doesn't want to give it to them.
Who was it? Haney that was fighting. He recently, I guess, Haney was the co-main event. They did end up having a float fight in between. He fought a tough, hard-nosed kid that was undefeated. It was actually a really good boxing match. At the end of the day, he won, but he had been given, I think, a WBO belt that didn't exist prior to the fight before that. Now, I don't know. I feel like each major organization should be able to have a belt. And what do you have there? You have the IBO, the IBF, the WBO.
Well, those are sanctioning bodies. I want promoters, though.
No, I agree. And that is a good thing because you have a guy like, say, Eddie Hearn, who's the big promoter out there right now. He doesn't necessarily make all the money because he doesn't have all the big fighters under his belt. There is competition in that range.
Mm-hmm. And it just gives more strategy and power to the athlete because the athlete can then go and win smaller belts or other major titles, and then that makes him more valuable. It gives his notoriety more of a boost that will make him more appealing for the other fighters to want to fight them. Then the promoter can't turn him away because there's just too much money on the table for the fight to happen.
So before we recap the fights, and I mean there wasn't a whole lot going on with any big names. However, I do like seeing them in Moscow. I like these global cards because you are bringing more athletes in from around the world. I wanted to get into the press conference, and the headlines everywhere, of course, are he says McGregor needs to win 10 more times before he gets to fight him. Yet nobody covered this. Now, I might as well just keep the volume a little low here because I'm going to have to read it because nobody in our audience, I think, speaks fluent Russian. Maybe I'm wrong, John. But the thing about this is not only does he call out Conor as a rapist who promotes alcohol, but He gets an ovation for it afterwards. This was nowhere in the U.S. media anywhere, and even RT didn't headline it that he called, insinuated Conor was a rapist. Instead, he says, "I don't beat old people or promote alcohol." So let's break this down.
They bleeped that Russian part out.
Well, that first time when we're talking about the press conference for the Proper 12 whiskey when he went to Moscow and he started talking shit about Dagestan, they didn't bleep it out, but somebody clearly asked him about the second sexual assault, and the woman refused. She got in a fight with him, and then when Conor asked her, she wouldn't tell him what it was and said she'd tell him afterwards. So, I mean, obviously this is, hey, Dana couldn't, we had some watershed moments. Dana couldn't deny the 2 sexual assault allegations last week when he was asked by Akamoto. Ariel Helwani finally asked the management.
Probably a staged question. They're probably press release statement. I don't think it's even unreasonable to assume that that's what happened. Like, hey, we're getting heat on this. We have to deal with it. Here's the questions you need to ask us, and frame it this way.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong.
I don't think for 1 second that's not what happened. I think with all the stuff that we saw happen with the DNC and how they would control and they would tell publications what to say, like, I don't think that is a far stretch in the imagination at all, that those guys were given the questions to ask and how to ask them.
You know what? I can't really argue with you, John. Let's play this clip, and I'm going to read it out for people, because they ask him why he doesn't wear the Russian flag. He says he was expecting this question. He says people who wear flags say they represent their native land, taking a stab at Conor. But unlike them, I don't rape women, I don't beat old people, and don't tell people to drink alcohol. I represent my own way. I don't believe that you wear a flag, you're a patriot. And if you don't, you're not. I love everything he's got to say here, John. There are many things that you must do before you raise that flag. It's not enough just to raise it. You have to show good character. I mean, that's kind of the perfect response. I know it's Veterans Day, and this is especially a day where people talk about patriotism. But I think he's dead on. You don't just raise the flag. You act a certain way, and you certainly don't beat women, beat old men and rape women.
Beat old men. He sounds like he beat the woman too.
Savagely. Savagely. That's the thing.
According to police reports.
So we were kind of talking about this before the broadcast, but I said, it's kind of sad and ironic that the UFC, a.k.a. ESPN, a.k.a. Disney, ABC Entertainment, all WME, Ari Emanuel, Dana White, these guys would promote a violent rapist. Let me just go into my ridiculous feed here, and there's a new Conor McGregor commercial for that Perry match where, I mean, all these people are going to look awful because it's not going anywhere. When this is on the House floor of the Parliament and you're promoting this guy going through the sky and the mountains for you to gamble, it's a bad look, dude. I don't like it. I think it's a terrible thing. And, Khabib personally, you've rolled with him, you've trained with him. He walks the walk. He's not just saying that, is he? Yeah,
he's what you see is what you get. He's not out, doing hood rat shit with his friends, that's for sure.
So you also talked about the control aspect. That the thing is that Nurmagomedov doesn't lose. He's got a long career because he hasn't been hit. He isn't going to shill out for the money. In fact, I talked about after his last fight with Poirier, he was calling for the UFC to go into a poor region in Africa and bring some economy there, and there are people there that need water. Yeah, I mean, this guy's like the salt of the fucking earth. I know it's not cool to say because, hey, he's from Dagestan and he, that's Russia, and Russia's the big boogeyman out there, and the other boogeyman on the war on terror is Muslims, and he happens to be one. I get it. We're not allowed to promote him in the United States, but you had a different take, John. You said they...
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it has to do with UFC's control. Like, they can't control him. They can't use money to get him to behave the way they want him to. They can't gaslight him into fighting a different style than he wants to fight. He's not going to lose anytime soon because the way he wins, like his grappling ability, he's just so far above anybody else. Like they don't have anybody that can beat him, and they've tried to get him beat. Every fight he's had in the UFC, they've tried to get him beat so they can control him. They just can't put him in a situation where they can tell him what to do. So now they've got this guy who doesn't take a lot of damage. He doesn't get hit a lot. He wins all the time. He doesn't need them for money. He doesn't have to come to them for anything. So, like, they don't want him. They don't want to promote him. They want to kick him out. They'd rather him leave. They would rather him leave than make money off of him.
That's an incredible take, especially as large as the market would be for Eastern Europe and how he bridges the gap. Not only from Eastern
They'd
Europe,
rather push him out and then find somebody else who's more flamboyant, who gets likes, gets clicks, and wins and loses, equally, so that they can control him, keep him away from the belt, not having the belt too often so he doesn't get too much pay-per-view money. They want Big Macs, right? They don't want, Wolfgang Puck to come into the kitchen at McDonald's and like start telling people they can have steak. Like they don't care. They're just trying to press out as much money as they can with their money-making machine and keep the conveyor belt going.
Well, let's do it. Let's go over some of the fights, and I'll go to the Bellator card. I did end up watching all this stuff as I was making thumbnails and getting ready. Logan Storley won again. I thought that was interesting on the prelims. There's always some good action on the prelims, mostly because most of these guys are up-and-comers, and they're often pretty well matched. Sometimes they feed somebody, but I see that in the main card more. I see that for the MVPs of the world. More than I see on the prelims, you know what I mean? Every once in a while, you definitely see him feeding somebody, like Aaron McKenzie, Sean Clements. But for the most part, I think Bellator does a good job on that. King Mo hung it up. He was going to hang it up regardless, it looked like. Took that shot. I mean, what's your feeling on that? Lawal had a pretty dominant reign in those early 2000s, coming in as a wrestler from Japan into Strikeforce. Mm-hmm. I mean, he beat Musasi. That was a big eye-opener for me.
No, he's a hell of a fighter, but he, like a lot of guys, he went the route of the stand-up game. And he abandoned a lot of his wrestling, and I think that kind of hurt him. He took some punishment. He probably didn't have to, and then the chin started to go. And then he started getting one-punched every now and again. So, I don't ever like seeing that, but I just want the younger guys, man, the risk reward versus standing and trading is just not really there, man.
When I think about that, didn't Mo, it was either his debut or his second fight in Bellator, he did get KO'd from, and under guy, and that kind of led to that string of you talking about back and forth. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a back and forth fighter before that. I mean, he was very, very dominant. And even in Bellator, I remember when he fought Czech Congo, he was able to utilize his wrestling to beat the much bigger man and just kind of keep Congo on the ground and unable to scrap. So he did employ it in fights like that. But like you said, I feel like at the 205 level, even though he had a lot of trouble making that weight, or some of the catchweight fights where they were lighter, you're right, he wanted to trade.
And yeah, I don't think he was that big. I think he should have fought at 185. But also, like, he almost died, like his knee injury. Like, he had his ACL, I think, replaced, and he got staph and was in the hospital for a little while back in the day. Like, that might have taken some years off of the career, too. Like, almost dying.
He looked undersized. He didn't look great when he stepped in there. I was kind of hoping maybe he was going to be able to eke out a victory. But you got young and hungry guys in there that, have some experience. And they're not just going to roll over because he's the veteran. It's certainly not what you want to see anyway. So, good career, man. I hope you make it in coaching. I always enjoyed his fights. His theatrics were always fun. He was one of the guys. I remember when he lost that decision to Rampage Jackson. It was a complete robbery, and he called it out right there. And I remember at the time, they still kind of had Rebney in the background, and they were bringing it ultra WWE style. Like, I don't mind a little entertainment, John. Like, I like what Coker does and the intros, but I'll never forget it because he went off and he was like, "You some dick riding motherfuckers," and Bjorn's dick riding on whatever. And literally that week where they had the fight, it was literally came on.
No, he had the absolute best comment when Bjorn came out with these guys trying to do some kind of weird union-ish type thing. He came out with tweets saying, "Oh, you're about to get finessed real good."
Well, I mean, again, when they were doing the WWE style, they literally were like, and they showed the clip, and they're like, "dick riding," and then they gave an explanation of what it was. And I remember within weeks, they had him out, and Coker had done his time after the UFC basically absorbed Strikeforce, and they allowed him to leave. And almost immediately, Coker got his job. And kind of what you got was, yeah, there was still the bravado. You still had the Fedors coming in, et cetera, but you didn't have like the sleazy WWE anything to get an audience, which I think is too much, man. Like I said, I wasn't in love with The Rock's 20-minute entrance on the BMF belt.
He's been doing some other stuff too, all right? He's been doing some other commentary, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not feeling it. I mean, just I mean, the cozying up. Anybody cozying up to Dana, like how can you say you respect athletes in any way, and then cozy up to somebody who does what that guy does? Like it's ridiculous. It's like, oh man, I love armies, and I'm going to cozy up to Hitler because he's such a great leader. Like, what the fuck? Like,
well, I mean, a lot of people did do that. He was Times Man of the Year a couple times. He got some really serious back. That's a whole can of worms. I know my boy James Corbett of the Corbett Report is doing a really interesting documentary and piece on Hitler and World War II and the financiers behind him and those that supported him, etc. That's going to be some real interesting stuff. Getting into the UFC from some World War II politics behind the scenes. Volkov.
Veterans Day.
He dominated Hardy, but Hardy was able to go all 3 rounds, not get knocked out, not look too bad. It looked like they let him use whatever juice they wanted to. He didn't look like he was going to gas. I'm being honest, man. Is that terrible to say that USADA's fixed and they let people like Hardy get no contest for blatantly cheating and using an inhaler in the 3rd round after he was losing the fight anyway and then gifting it to him? No, it's the truth. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's up with Volkov. Volkov, I honestly thought before that knockout he was on the way to being a tough guy for Stipe just because of his length and his kickboxing background, right? He held the title in Bellator. He's a tough guy. He's fought tough guys. I wanted to see a more impressive return. Maybe he's just too scared to get in there and really trade, which maybe he should be after that knockout with Lewis.
Yeah, I think it happened a lot of times. One, it could be, he's got the jitters. He's a little gun shy from getting knocked out. I don't know if he's been knocked out before like that. And then it could also be he's got PTSD from getting tired in a fight. There's no worse feeling than being in a fight and getting tired. So he had that happen to him. He got tired, and then he got caught with a big shot from Lewis. So it's very, very plausible that he's a little bit gun shy.
Well, I mean, when I watched him, I mean, he looked pretty crisp at a distance. He didn't look like he was doing more than a 1 or 2 punch combination. Certainly wasn't stringing in that 3rd one. Maybe you'd see a 1-2 pepper with a leg kick or a front kick. I don't know. I like Volkov. I don't think that the heavyweight division anywhere is that deep. So I guess you still have him in the top 5. I liked what Derek Lewis was doing in his last fight. He looked like he was taking his health seriously. Maybe that's a rematch you make. I don't know if Volkov wants that fight. Otherwise, it's kind of like a push there right now. I think that DC obviously deserves the shot against Stipe. Stipe's trying to get that money, right? You know the feeling, John. Is there any other standouts? I know Ngannou's out there. I know Walt Harris's head is just not going to be in the game for some time, especially with the news that they picked the guy up that was last seen with his stepdaughter, and they think that she took blunt force trauma in the car, the whole 9. So,
They haven't found the girl at all or anything
No,
yet?
they haven't found her yet, but it's not it's looking like a horror show, John. It's really disgusting. Yeah. So, I mean, who's left? Curtis Blades? Like, Curtis Blades is off and on.
Yeah.
Overeem's off and on. There's really, I don't know, man. I'm not seeing a ton out there. The heavyweight division, I think anybody could break through. I think Ryan Bader is a problem for a lot of guys in those divisions, but we'll never see those fights.
Yeah. Blagoy, he just lost to Lewis. Like, he's tough. If he would change, if he would have had more grappling, more ground and pound when he got the fight to the ground, he could have won that fight with Lewis. But what do you do with him? I don't know either. Yeah, they need some fresh blood.
Yeah, I mean, the heavyweight division's tough, man. And even Ngannou, I feel like, Ngannou doesn't want to trade with another guy that can trade. Look at that disaster of a fight with Lewis. That was like one of the most boring fights where two guys that were supposed to come out guns blazing didn't even have Nerf guns. I mean, they barely looked at each other funny. That fight was kind of a wash. They gave that to Ngannou, but I mean, come on. Or no, they gave it to Lewis. Ngannou lost that fight.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll bet you that didn't help his contract and his money either. Ed Herman fought on this card, and he actually looked decent for an old man at 205. Ed Herman, I've liked him in his last couple of fights.
I thought his fight before was his last one.
Well, you know what? I think he's going to fight again. You know what, Ed Herman? I think if he stays in that 1 to 2 fight a year range, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? Give him a young guy who's coming up, or a guy that's knocked out of the top 15 that wants a journeyman fight or some kind of like a war. It doesn't have to all be Bellator. If Ed Herman wants to make that extra Reebok bonus money because he's got 75 fights under his belt or whatever, you know how that contract works. I guess you have to milk the system where you can.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you can have sponsors in Bellator, but there's still less visibility, so there's not really a lot of choice in sponsorships these days. And most companies don't do straight up money for sponsorship anymore either. It's usually some type of affiliate sales.
Yeah, and the other thing is, when I look at that, John, the UFC did rig it. They said, you're going to get 5,000 the first, I think it's like 3 fights, and then the next 2 fights it's 10,000, and then it was something like 2,500 more a fight, etc. So if you have 15 fights under your belt, all of a sudden that maybe even surpasses what you were making on your Affliction shirt deal and your No Explode, you know what I mean, and your BSN and all those other things. But you also have to grit it out, and you have to take the fights that they want, and you're never going to have that big money payday. When I saw that Masvidal and Nate on the books both got $500,000 for that fight, right? Now, I would assume both of them got pay-per-view points also, but how much money did that generate? How much money did that event alone generate? What's your guess?
And how much did they make?
How much? I mean, how much?
How many seats were in attendance? Where was the location at?
Was that MSG? And I sold it out.
MSG?
Yeah. Oh man.
So you're talking 15 million to 20 million?
Oh yeah. I want to
say just in seats. That's not T-shirt sales. That's not parking. That's not concessions. That's just people buying tickets and sitting down.
I've got
to think. These guys, everybody was there to watch them. Everybody was there to see those two guys. So they only made maybe $2 million each?
Well, I was thinking one of the big reasons.
That sounds like they got robbed. It sounds like they got hoed out. Masvidal and Diaz got hoed out. They had Dana's cock in their mouth. That's what happened right there, guys. You had the baddest motherfucker title belt, and you're both sucking dick on your knees. I said it. That's the truth. You got robbed.
I'm sure, that was one of the reasons that Diaz was pissed they stopped the fight. I'm sure that Diaz had a show and win, and I was thinking that he was going to make $2 to $5 million in that fight, and I think you're right. He probably made closer to 2. And I don't think they had the same thing with Masvidal. They gave him pay-per-view points, and I think Masvidal probably walked away with like 2. These are total guesses, just based on the numbers. But John, I have to say,
that's me. I'm estimating up.
I don't think you're wrong. I definitely don't think you're wrong. I think with the pay-per-view points,
range.
it's obvious because the thing did incredible numbers on pay-per-views, and I think it's a $200
but
million.
They're not returning champs, so I mean, there's no guarantee they got pay-per-view.
I think that Diaz worked it out that way for sure. I don't know about Masvidal. I think Masvidal using it as a launching pad to try to create some heat in a Canelo fight is the smartest thing he could have done.
A genius.
Yeah,
genius. He'll make more money in that fight. He may make more money in marketing than he's ever made in MMA just from that.
I agree. So I kind of want to see that, guys. And if you want to see John Fitch every day, go to official John Fitch Twitter or YouTube right now, where you can check him out on the John Fitch Knows Nothing show. You've had guests recently. Why don't you tell us about some of the guests and that format of the show these days?
Yeah, I've had a few people on. So interesting people that I just have on just to talk. I had Kevin Pham, who's kind of an economic and Bitcoin expert. He was working for Wells Fargo back in the day, and he was noticing all of these illegal practices that were just standard within Wells Fargo. And then it used to be somebody would get caught, and then Wells Fargo would blame the one individual for the bad behavior and say, oh, it was just one bad apple. But really it was like the way they did business. So he went public with that some time ago, and he profited off of it too, because he was going to go public as a whistleblower on this stuff, but he shorted Wells Fargo stock ahead of time. So it's pretty genius. So he made money off the stock dipping when he went forward. He got the CEO to step down, and then he got into Bitcoin because of the freedom, the ability to bank yourself and do self banking. And then I had AJ Cortez on, who is a fitness expert out of San Diego. He does a lot of stuff on Twitter, and he does a lot of online business and sales. He recently got banned off of Twitter because he was saying bad things about pedophiles.
That's incredible. Elaborate. What was he saying, and who was he targeting?
Well, he was banned for breach of their whatever TOS, but they didn't explain what it was. And the only thing that was in his timeline that was negative, or could be taken as negative, were comments about pedophiles, like being killed or something like that. And he got banned for it. Like, more than likely was somebody complaining about him and reported him. That's usually how this stuff happens. I think a lot of these, except for the shadow bans, like a lot of these things, when they take people off, it's because enough people complained about them. They just don't. They're so spineless. They just don't want to stand up to people complaining.
Yeah, they just got rid of Don Cherry. Do you know who Don Cherry is?
Mm-mm.
Don Cherry is like this old school classic like hockey announcer from Canada. And if you look up like some of the best like Don Cherry, like 1970s and 1980s, there's compilations on YouTube. They're fucking hilarious. All right? I mean, you'd never get away with what Don Cherry had to say then. But Don Cherry, I think he was on Sportsnet and something else. And they had their, I think they have like their Veterans Month up in Canada. And he had something to say. I didn't even get the reference. It must be a Canadian reference. Basically, they wear this poppy. This I guess it's like one of our ribbons or whatever. And he was talking about immigrants, not specifying like a certain race of immigrant or anybody, but just like immigrants. The least they could do is buy a poppy because they're in their land of milk and honey. And he got canned, and they had to do an apology. I mean, it's pretty. Listen,
never apologize, folks. Never ever apologize ever.
I think you can apologize when you're actually wrong, but not like something like that. You know what I mean? I think there's one thing in humility. I like what Dave Chappelle had to say. Like, he got put on the spot the other day about homosexuality and his act, and he's like, "I'm going to say everything I need to say, blah 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 blah," and then he made a fart noise. You know what I mean? At least when he's not going to give the insincere or the sincere apology, he lets you know. He's like, basically, get the fuck out of my face. This is comedy. And in a culture where we're trying to ban all, I heard they're trying to get rid of Boomer. Boomer has to go because that's an insult. Have you seen that? People are protesting it, John?
I had to look it up because people would call me a boomer.
Yeah, they say that to me too. Just
like
so you know,
boomer, I
me
was
and
like, you
John
people don't know math, do
we're
you?
Gen X. Yeah, we're not boomers.
Well, there's different terms. There's boomers, gloomers, doomers, and zoomers.
See, I know
Right. So I
doomer
watched the
too.
video. I had to go down the rabbit hole because I got called this. So like the boomers are just like people who have old school mentalities. They're not unaware of the future and how much of things have changed. They just think they should be the way they've always been. The doomers are the people who are like aware of all the shitty things around them in the world, and they're just like, fuck it, give up, nihilistic. And then what is it? Oh, the zoomers are the people who are born with all the technology. All right, so the kids that are born with the internet, born with the cell phones, like they've got all that. And then there's like a happy one where they turn everything positive. They're aware of all the shit that's going on, but they're positive. I can't remember. There's like 4 main ones.
I mean, I don't know what to say, man. When I hear shit like that,
whatever, like, labels to me is just labels is just small brained. You're small brained. You have to put some kind of label. Yeah, I have to mark this thing a thing. I can't. My mind is too small to understand nuance and subtle differences. So I have to label things. So it's easy for me. So I think anybody who puts labels on stuff is low IQ.
Well, I look at it this way. Like if somebody was, and has called me a boomer, I'm basically like, dude, fuck you, man. Like, I can defend myself. I'm not calling him not to be able to say the word. I'll be like, just so you know, the baby boomers are actually the World War II generation. I'm after that. I'm Gen X. We don't get talked about anymore. Yeah, Gen X never gets talked about. It was supposed to be like Gen Y or Gen Z afterwards. I guess it's all been lumped into like the millennial group.
Well, Gen X to millennials. Like, well, we get overlooked because I don't know. We do a lot of good stuff, but there's man.
I feel like
we were definitely one of the most progressive generations. Like we didn't care. Like everything was like okay. Like okay, we get it. Like we don't care about your genitals. We don't care about your sexual orientation. We don't care about any skin color. We don't care. Okay, everybody's cool. Like who are you as a person? Like I felt like our generation got it, and then it just started going downhill after.
I feel like to an extent you're right in the social aspects, but one of the things that kind of sucks about our generation is we grew more and more apathetic and unaware, especially when it came to protesting big government and wars. It started out okay. Most people got it. Most people were tricked with Afghanistan for sure. But like Iraq, there were a lot of people in the streets like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, fuck this. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And then as Iraq went down and Libya went down and Syria went down, less and less people were in the streets.
The big thing that happened in the 90s, though, I think was that we got hooked with consumerism. So I think we became aware. We kind of got, kind of aware to like the social issues and not caring anymore about race or color or genders or sexual orientations, but we became obsessed with buying stuff. So buying stuff and being a baller and that stuff took precedent over caring about what was going on, across the pond.
Well, I'd say this: like you're not wrong. I especially remember the '90s as like that mall culture. Like especially for me, that was the cool thing to do for the weekend. Is if you could, in high school, you get out to the mall. Yeah, go shopping, go to a movie. It was like
that Ben Affleck movie.
What's that? Oh, Mallrats.
Mallrats. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I love Mallrats. They're doing it. They were trying to do a sequel. It might actually happen now that
sneak palm on the chocolate pretzels.
I love Kevin Smith, man. I wanted to go see the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, but he's touring with it. So like it's coming to Albany. I think I gotta wait till February, and tickets are like $100 because it's him and Jason Mewes doing a show. I've never seen them in person. I'm kind of considering it. I don't know. We got a super chat here from 47 Montana. Says Khabib is a good man. I think he is a good man. Also, I haven't seen anything but positive things come out of the guy's mouth. Everyone wants to point to him jumping that cage, but it was at Dylan Dennis, and I'm not a fan of Dylan Dennis or his antics. Mm-hmm. And did you see that they banned Dennis from the KSI Logan Paul fight?
Did they?
Yeah, they banned him from the Staples Center. That place was fucking rocking, dude. I don't know if
That's
you saw
nuts.
any.
I mean, that's wow. It's man. Yeah, it's promotion, man. Marketing is everything.
I think it was brilliant. I remember I didn't know who KSI was. I'd only known who Logan Paul was because
Yeah, I still don't know who KSI is. Is he a rapper or he's also a YouTube guy?
he's a YouTube guy who was a gamer out of the UK, I guess. And whether he did rap and stuff, he became super successful. Again, I'm not hip. I'm not with it. I don't know these people. I only became really familiar with Logan Paul after the controversy of him with the
Videotape the dead body.
with
Yeah,
the dead body. Exactly. That's the first time I really paid attention, and then I started seeing him everywhere and seeing how the Disney had backed him and that him and his brother Jake were these things. So I caught the amateur boxing match. Did you see that one when they boxed with headgear?
No, I mean I saw highlights here and there.
I mean, I caught it.
Did they get licensed as professionals for this one or something?
Yeah, no, they fought as pros in this one. They no headgear. They did 6 rounds instead of, I think it was 3 in the first fight. I might be wrong. Maybe it was 6 in the first fight, but headgear. But one of them had Shannon Briggs as his cornerman. Logan Paul.
I saw that.
He came in heavily muscled. My biggest beef with the fight was they both had a legit knockdown at one point, in my opinion. And the one was called not a knockdown, where KSI clearly knocked down Logan Paul and it wasn't a slip. But then the other one was that Logan Paul knocked down KSI later in the fight, and then he kind of gave him like a little pat on the head on the way down. And
I saw that one.
yeah, he took 2 points. I could see him taking maybe 1 point on that, but taking
was there any type of warnings for fraudulent behavior or?
No, that's what I'm saying. No,
that's fishy.
I didn't like it. I mean, I didn't like the fact. And, KSI ends up winning a split. Hey, it's great for a trilogy. You know what I'm saying?
He won a split on a 2-point takeaway. You don't ever, as a ref, you don't ever want to be the factor that caused the win or the loss.
I felt like he was. And it was so weird. Like there was the float fight before, John. The guy gets hit. And then he doesn't want to get back up, so he pretends to get hit in the back of the head. And then after the referee forces him back up, if he wants to continue or fight, because he's not going to give him the full 5 minutes, he gets in there and the bell separates him, and he takes a couple of shots, swings at the other guy after the fact, and then he gets disqualified. So it only goes 1 round. It was a weird night of fights.
Was that a pro fight or what was that? Was that
it was also a pro fight. I think the one guy either had 1 or 2 fights or almost nothing, and then the other guy was one of these journeyman fighters that had lost his last 12 out of 15 and been KO'd 8 times. It was one of those records, and he didn't come in shape. And the other guy actually was 7 or 8-0. And they're pumping him up. He's some jacked white kid that looks a little bit like Logan Paul. I forget what his name is, but I think he's got a foreign last name. So they're obviously trying to feed this kid, whoever. And it was just an embarrassment. They were supposed to be on after the main event, but because there was some extra time, they popped him on there, and it just became in fact, it ended up trending. It was so weird and embarrassing. But again. Commanding that big of an audience, I would imagine they got a lot of subscribers for DAZN, and DAZN needs that.
Yeah, the money they're paying out for Canelo, they gotta make that money somehow. I mean, I think they struck gold with Andy Ruiz in the Joshua fight. They kind of lucked out with that one.
I mean, that's coming up. I can't wait.
Because if Joshua would have won, they're getting another big payday. They're gonna get a lot of views for that fight. I'm gonna watch.
I think Ruiz looks awesome. He looks like he dropped about.
Barry was very impressed with him that first fight. And now he's coming in better shape.
I'm wondering. I don't know how Anthony Joshua was coming in the favorite in that fight, John. I've got Ruiz all day. And like you said, DAZN kind of lucks out because I'm sure they have some kind of a crazy contract with him, giving him that fight against Anthony Joshua coming in. So, they're going to have him no matter what. I mean, I would also say, since they have that big fight with Joshua and they had to give him a huge payday, their best case scenario is that it's a back and forth battle, and somehow Joshua evens it up, but it causes a trilogy fight. I mean, that's best case for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, it does work out for those guys if they can build up a hype for a third fight.
Well, not only build up a hype for a third fight, because no one.
But I almost want to see instead of a third fight though, I'd like to see Ruiz fight some of these other guys, like the Tyson Fury or.
I want to see that too, but I think it's going to be awfully difficult when DAZN signs that. Right now, ESPN Plus has Tyson Fury, right, and then Deontay Wilder is on pay-per-view against Ortiz.
You see, everybody shits on boxing, right? Everybody shits on boxing because Ali boxing is dead, blah blah blah. It's not dead. It's doing great money. The problem with boxing is the fucking television deals. Like, boxing changed. The golden era of boxing was when boxing went from free television and theaters to pay-per-view, right? When they put up the paywalls for people to watch, that's when people, casual fans stopped watching it. So, like, you want to blame somebody, you want to point the finger at somebody for boxing not being what it used to be, it's these goddamn paywalls.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I just don't know how real. Like, I'm looking forward to Deontay Wilder versus Ortiz too. Okay, so that's up. Well, Tyson Fury almost lost his last fight. You could argue he didn't look great in that fight, but Fury's supposed to get Deontay Wilder if he beats Ortiz. Ortiz is the only guy that knocked him down, and we know anything can happen in boxing. Ortiz is no slouch. He can end up winning that fight and throwing a monkey wrench into the whole division. Other than that, who do you got? Klitschko as a name to come back in?
He's talking about coming back, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's an interesting fight too. But other than that, you're kind of in this situation. Tony Bellew, the guy that Ruiz lost to in a controversial decision, he's not fighting anymore. So you don't have a lot of names to bring up, and the big names are all in monetary deals with these other big businesses. I think it's going to slow down the really good fights. So to me, I just don't know how DAZN gets a better business opportunity than if somehow there's a thirst for that third fight.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the platforms that are showing the fights have to make a deal. So ESPN and DAZN are going to have to come together on some kind of freaking deal to get the fights that fans want to see. It has nothing to do with the promoters of the boxer, the sport of boxing itself. It comes down to the damn freaking platforms.
It comes down to the cheese. Who can make the cheese? That's what it comes down to. We got another big UFC card coming up. The 170 belt. You're still fighting 170. I wish we were talking about you and Lima and that 170 belt. Damn it, John. Scott Coker, what's going on? Let's book that fight already. My God. Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington. I've got Covington, man. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Kamaru comes. Kamaru's a bad motherfucker. Think he's a great fighter. I don't know that I think that Covington has everything he has, and his hands have improved significantly. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Covington has an edge. I really do. I haven't been blown away or impressed really with Usman. He's okay. He's kind of he's a solid average fighter, but I don't see anything above and beyond that's amazing. And I think everything that he does, I think Colby can do a little bit better. But I don't think Colby's that great either.
So who do you think is dangerous in the 170 division that they have in the UFC? Is Fitch ready to? Is that what we're hearing right now? Do we need a Fitch Usman fight right now? Is that what you're telling me?
I would take any of those fights in a heartbeat. I think I would beat those guys.
I mean,
they're knockoff versions of me.
I mean, I think that they are ground and pound guys without the pound, John. I think you're not wrong. I mean, you look at Tyron Woodley, and he hasn't fought in almost 2 years at this point, right?
Damn, it's been that long, huh?
It has been that long. I mean, Woodley hasn't fought since he fought Usman. It's got to be at least 19, 20 months ago. Usman, I think, has fought once since winning the belt, right? Who'd he beat? Was it RDA? Or he beat RDA on the way in. He beat RDA, and then he beat Woodley, and I'm pretty sure he's defended at least once. Covington's just looked impressive. He doesn't get a lot of fights, but that's because a lot of guys don't want to fight him. Masvidal,
Well, my thing with the welterweight weight class in the UFC is that they pushed the stand-up guys so much that the guys in the top ended up sucking at wrestling. So you had these top guys that sucked at wrestling, and then the guys who could wrestle a little bit now, they're coming in and dominating.
Well, I think that they have dominated. I mean, Robbie Lawler is really the last time that we saw a striker, but Lawler had really decent wrestling also, you know. And
I mean, I think that Rory's base is mostly striking.
Yeah,
when he was there.
No, you're right.
Wonder Boy, man, the guy that did the spinny Sage. It seems like all the bigger names that I've thought of, George and even Nate going up to 170, like it seems like most of the guys are very heavily striking based.
I mean, I really can't argue with that. I thought Wonder Boy, you know, he looked pretty good in his last fight. He looked like he's got another few in him, but that also depends on him not getting hit. You know, he didn't get hit a lot in that fight. And when somebody does end up putting hands on him, you know, he's an older guy. He's got a lot of, I mean, he had, 60 kickboxing fights outside of the UFC. You know, he's been in there a long, long time.
Yeah.
I mean, who do you think you got in Bellator right now at 170?
There's a lot of young and up-and-comers. You know, Lima's champ right now looks good. Rory's still a tough dude. You have guys like Ed Ruth, who's growing and getting better every day. You have guys like Neiman Gracie, who's solid. Who, you know, he's on the threshold. He could break through and be a real contender. It depends on if he does the right things. Man, the Russian.
Yeah.
Is that Russian dude?
Yeah, but he just Koreshkov, but he just got beat by Larkin.
No. There's a younger Russian who's undefeated.
Oh, really? Which one are we thinking of? Man, I should know that, especially going to all these things and watching them.
Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, I don't think he was in the. I don't know if he did the tournament. If he was an alternate, but he's undefeated. He looks really great. I think he beat. Man, I think he beat Munson.
I mean, I think that, you know, right now, I don't know, there's not a lot of names that are selling tickets outside of, you know, John Jones, McGregor. Khabib does, but I mean, again, I don't want to push him. Like, there's not a lot of control.
That's a failure of the promoter. It's in your name, your promoter. If people don't know who your fighters are, that's your fault. You suck at your job. Suck at your job. Your name is literally promoter. What do? I promote people. How come nobody knows who your fighters are? Oh, because they don't know. They don't know how to promote themselves. They failed. Not me, the promoter. That's why they're promoters and we're fighters. We fight in a real sport. We fight, we win, and that's easy to promote because we got a winner. He works hard. Let's put you out there. Let's spend money to do that. They don't do that.
And you know, it's kind of surprising because Disney is a huge empire. ABC is a huge empire. ESPN is a huge empire. Even when you look at the PFL, right? I mean, not a lot of people are talking about the PFL. I'm probably going to end up going to New York City at the Hulu Theater to watch the finals there. But there's an opportunity for 6 fighters to become millionaires. You know, or at least you had NBC Sports behind it before. Now you have ESPN and ESPN Plus behind it before, and they're not even making all the fights available to their ESPN Plus subscribers. Isn't that discouraging for the fans? So
here is my conspiracy theory on why.
Preach on,
right?
Pitch.
They don't care about promoting fighters. They don't care. Their product is done. That's all they care about is what they're producing. They just want something that fills the time slot. They get people watch live. It just has to be something that is live. It has to be live entertainment. MMA fighting, because of the way it's set up, the way that we are extorted, it's the cheapest one for them to put on. It's the cheapest thing for them to put on. It's the cheapest event, right? They can't do concerts because the rock musicians take too much money. They can't do other sports because they have collective bargaining agreements and unions or athletic associations. We're the bottom of the barrel. We're the cheapest, easiest product to put out there that people will watch, and they can show commercials and marketing stuff through. That's all it is. All MMA is to these people is a vehicle to get eyeballs on their products and ads. That's it. They don't care about building up fighters. They don't care about the sport. It's just a vehicle so that they can sell their products.
Well, that's why I can't watch it on ESPN Plus. It's impossible for me to watch it on that channel.
Sit down and watch. People don't watch anything anymore. It's on demand. Everything's on demand. Nobody watches commercials. The only way to get people to watch commercials and advertisements is to make them sit down during a live event, and then you can sneak in those ads while the live event's going on. You can have the announcer saying, "Oh, that takedown was brought to you by Captain Morgan," whatever bullshit. Like they're selling to you. It's not really a sport to them. It's just a big long infomercial. Basically, they get your eyeballs on there and sell.
I mean, I'll tell you what, that BMF title, there was about 27 different things labeled on that damn mat. It was killing me. But again, I mean that. People will say all sports is quote unquote entertainment. Therefore, these type of things they're good, John. They're great.
They were most of the other sports started at a time, where it was a lot about the sport, the sport mattered to the people putting it on. I don't think the sport matters at all to these people. I don't think they don't care one bit. All they care about is the eyeballs that they have on their commercials.
So obviously, you think one of the biggest ways to change this is through the Ali Act. How far along is that? Like, where are we at right now? I mean, you're the guy to talk to.
We have introduced it. We're planning on introducing it again soon, hopefully, and then we'll be back to lobbying and trying to get more signatures, get people to support, and then get another subcommittee hearing and try to get to the Senate. But they'll probably reintroduce next year. I would think.
And do you go to D.C. to have this stuff introduced into Congress as a bill?
We go on our own, and we self-lobby. We pay to go and talk to the representatives and tell them the story. And once they hear what's going on, they're overwhelmingly supportive. And
I know that Randy Couture was a big part of that. Have you been in touch with Couture or his camp since the heart attack? Or
yeah, he's doing good. He walked his ass to the hospital.
I heard that.
He was getting a workout in, and he started feeling a little pinch and lightheaded. So he quickly finished his workout.
Finished the workout. Oh.
Finished the workout. Went home, showered up, tried to rest, but it didn't go away. So he walked himself to the hospital.
Wow. And did he end up having surgery or a stent put in or anything? Or
had a stent put in, I believe.
He did have a stent put in. My God. When a guy that healthy can, have a heart attack and a stent, does that scare the shit out of you, man? Because, I mean, you eat right, you exercise.
Well, because, you have thicker whatever from, the natural is just a nickname. I think for some guy.
John, what do you mean, John? I don't mean, what could you possibly be saying?
I don't think they're eating too much steak or whatever. I love Randy and whatever, different times, different things.
So do you think that does pose a great?
Well, I mean, I'm not even saying in the fight days, but I think college wrestling or Olympic wrestling, I think, it wouldn't be, an impossible happenstance that an Olympic level athlete chose to use testosterone or something, and that could have led to a heart attack later in life.
I mean, I see that stuff, but then you look at a guy like Sly, right? And he hasn't had heart issues. Then again, he's not, it's not like he's a world-class athlete.
Yeah,
those are glam muscles. I get it.
He's doing mostly stuff for aesthetics, and he's probably getting blood work and stuff done, and yeah, he probably has something to watch. He probably has somebody watching him all the time. He probably has a special doctor who is able to take care of that stuff. He got the money.
I mean, he is balling out of control for sure. All right, Fitch, we are coming up on the hour. I want to tell people where they can check you out over at johnfitch.net, and it's official John Fitch. Subscribe right now. Go over there, subscribe, hit that sub button to John's channel. Now, other than that, you have your Instagram, your Facebook, your Twitter. Tell people what you do on these seminars and why they should join the Patreon, because even if they're not coming to meet you in person, you do a lot of training over the internet as well.
Yeah, I do some online coaching, and then with the Patreon, it's I'll literally take some of the seminars and I'll chop them up and have techniques and different things available for you guys to check out. But basically, my Fit Smash system is something I came up with. I did the Modern Army Combatives program. I got my level 4 certification to be an instructor, and that was like some military style training, and that got me to open up my mind to like real life scenario as far as applying these things, and what's the best way for a regular person to be competent in a life or death situation. And I just try to find a way to minimize the stuff you need to learn and create the quickest path to make you competent in a fight. So I have 3 tiers to my system. AMOS, which is achieve and maintain an operational status. That's get up, stay up. Second tier is close the distance, subdue and submit. Take them down, subdue them, or submit them. And 3 is stand and fight. So cover the 3 different areas of the fight. Make it easy for you to understand what to do in the fight. And I like to say that I'll take you from 0 to fight ready faster than any other system.
John Fitch, he's going to teach you how to kick ass, folks. He's the guy to do it. Fitch Smash.
You must master violence.
You love that. Hey, I got to get in on it. I feel like
to master masculinity, you must master violence. It's one of the aspects. It's one of the components.
I'm shameful, man. I'm also car-tarded. I mean, I can't fix a car. It's my cross to bear, John. If you like this video, by the way, guys, we do it once a week. Thumbs it up, share it, Mixed Martial Mindset. We had, I think, a record amount of views on the video, almost 3,000 last week, and then over on the Periscope, I think over 1,000. Not even sure how many we're getting on the gruelingtruth.com, but that's where you can find us on the audio version. And I'm a documentary filmmaker also, guys. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order to Find, and Shade the Motion Picture, all available free on this channel. We got another super chat with the Dancy sticker. That's the new thing the kids are doing there, John, is they have the super chat stickers.
Wow.
Yeah, have you seen it? Yes.
I've gotten the email telling me about it. Yeah.
It's a big new move from YouTube. I don't know how many of those I'm going to get, guys, but I can use it.
That totally makes up for all the censorship.
Yeah, totally, exactly. Totally. And then they're.
Oh man, I'm not even mad about the not getting ads shared on most of my videos anymore.
Something we didn't go over. We might as well in this last few minutes is what do you think about them banning that guy's name? You heard about that, right?
They banned a guy's name.
So do you know about this Ukrainian whistleblower? They've actually named him. I call him Maxi Boy, but I'm gonna Ericana Caramello LOLO. Anyway,
but you're not even allowed to say his name, or they'll.
Apparently, they're making videos private or pulling them. Judicial Watch got a video pulled. Facebook pulled his name off of any posts, and he's being represented by.
Because they want the freaking the impeachment stuff to stick, and they don't want anybody ruining.
Dude, it's insane. Bullshit. There's nothing to impeach for. First of all, there's not even articles of impeachment drawn. This is an impeachment inquiry. I keep reading about this shit, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Meanwhile, I did a video on it today, John. The Roger Stone trial is going on. That's very real. They're not even trying to get Roger Stone on talking to WikiLeaks. He did nothing illegal in the run-up to 2016 in the presidency. They're trying to get him on technicalities like they got Manafort on for lying to Congress or giving misleading statements after the fact. Hey, guess what, guys? Congress lies every fucking day with impunity, and they never get called on their bullshit. Why should I be beholden to their bullshit, ever? Especially when they talk about hacked emails that weren't even fucking hacked. They were downloaded. All the evidence drives me so nuts, John. I mean, did you even know the Roger Stone trial was going on?
No.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I remember last I heard about him was his arrest.
Yeah.
Where CNN had just happened to hear that he was going to be arrested that day.
Well, see, they've pivoted, John. You got to understand. Well, they've pivoted away from Russiagate, didn't stick. And then, like I always said, remember, before the report, I was saying it's going to be obstruction of justice. You watch. And then they split the report into obstruction of justice. That was the new flavor. They tried
It
with that.
disappears, and now we got something else. They just keep moving the goalposts. And I don't understand the people who don't see it. When do you realize what they're doing? Like, how long does it take? Like, what do you have to see to understand that? You know, they're just going to keep moving the goalposts. They're just trying to distract you. It's not left or right politics, people. It's elite predator class versus everybody else.
Thank you so much. And guys, if you want to support me financially, I'm
starting to realize that it's not even it's red pill versus blue pill, right? It's people who are still plugged into the matrix versus people who have seen behind the curtain. Like we've seen the wizard.
Yeah, but you know what? Even the people that see behind the curtain, they're somewhat disappointing, man. You can't tell me that Bernie Sanders doesn't know a lot of what he's saying is bullshit. You know, like when he stands up there.
He's a part of it.
Yeah, that's my point. It's like, I'd love Tulsi Gabbard to death, and I think she's really.
Think about it. I mean, like he said a lot of really good things, and so did Barack Obama. This guy's been a career politician. He's never had a real job. He's never had a real paying job. You're going to tell me this guy really gives a shit about a regular person?
But even the people that have the real jobs, they get absorbed by the system. It's like I said, Trump promised us he was going to bring down the deep state. He couldn't even reveal Kennedy's killers. Twice. Twice he was supposed to do it. That's 50 years ago, John. If we can't reveal the criminals from 50 years ago, we're not leaving fucking Syria anytime soon. Actually, I'm doing a follow-up video on that. Assad just got interviewed. Trump says, listen, we're going to keep the troops around the oil. We might even bring Exxon in. Like, that's some crazy-ass shit. And you know why? Because if we don't do it, ISIS is going to get
$5 a
it.
gallon.
Well, it's just...
On my road trip back, I stopped at a place. It was $5 a gallon. Like, hey, man, if you're going to do this war stuff for oil, can I get some lower prices on the gas at least? Come on.
This is the way I look at it. Even that mentality is bad because now we have the mentality. Remember, it was like, all right, we're going in, but we've got to stop Al-Qaeda. Okay, we stopped Al-Qaeda. Now we're going to take over the oil fields, right? We've stopped the Taliban. Now the mentality is this. There exists an Al-Qaeda-like group called ISIS that we actually have teamed up with Al-Qaeda to fight. And by the way, just because ISIS exists, that means Syria's oil is ours because at any moment, ISIS could take Syria's oil. Even though Syria's like, hey, fuck you, we can take care of our own oil.
I'm tired of the lies. Just be like, look, they got oil, we want it, we want cheaper oil, support us taking their resources. And I'd be like, okay, hey, at least you're honest. Like we're in Afghanistan because of the opium. Okay, I got you. I get it. What do I get out of it?
You get nothing. You get nothing. You get absolutely
nothing.
fucking nothing.
I get to pay for it, but I don't get anything in return.
You get a bunch of commercials for opioids on fucking television and psychotropic drugs that they're going to fucking charge you 5 times than what they're worth, while life-saving drugs are also going to be kept out of reach so that they can bleed you dry while you pay fucking 9 times more than you should for insurance. Is that about right?
Pretty much.
John Fitch? America. John Fitch, a pleasure as always. Guys, it's Mixed Martial Mindset every single week. I think this was number 6 or 7. I'm losing count, but we'll see you next week. Thank you again, John.
All right, man. Take it easy.